Top of the morning, fellow peasants. How you all doing? So apologies, I haven't got my background set up, and I look like something out of The Walking Dead. I've only had 2 hours sleep. I don't know why. It wasn't this news, though it has been playing on my mind. But this was the news that on the 22nd of September, Square Enix will from now on be embracing games as a service model. So this was CEO Matsuda, so the head of Square, and he came out and said that they will be embracing games as a service model because that's the direction the video game industry is heading towards. And that quote, "We'll be approaching game design with a mind to generate recurring revenue streams." Oh God, no! Why would you say that? Why would you say that? I mean, this is one of those moments where a video game director or CEO or gaming company are more honest than they usually are and should be, because they're actually telling us what they think for once. Usually this is the kind of thing they would glaze, so I can respect Matsuda for his honesty. Just straight up, yeah, this is going to be a way for us to generate more recurring revenue streams. So it's a cash grab. This is for your money. It's not even about the players anymore. It's just deep down it's about the money, and they've come out and admitted it. Fuck me. And it's not even just that line, it's even the first part. So everyone else is heading towards that in the video game industry, and that's why we're going in that direction as well. Is that really what you've become, Square? Like, you just look at other game developers and you just chase the trends that they're setting. No, you're just following what everyone else does. Are the days really gone where Final Fantasy and Square Enix, you were the trendsetters? You were the ones who led the way. Have you just completely given up on that now? Well, if this article's anything to go by, yes, they have. And he kind of even says it here. So gone are the days in which single-player games were of primary status and multiplayer games secondary, Matsuda said. Lately, multiplayer games have taken the lead, and it is standard for games to be designed for long-term play. He says watching the advanced techniques of professional gamers, watching streamers, watching gaming is growing into a major form of entertainment. Thanks to considerable advancements in the online streaming environment, it is the presence of esports spectatorships that make this meaningful. Once the size of gaming spectatorship grows, gaming itself will gain value as a form of media. This conversion of gaming into a form of media is proceeding rapidly, and we have a great deal of interest in this field and intend to proactively work to turn it into an actual business going forward. So you're converting our franchise, our 30-year franchise of single-player fucking games and single-player adventures. You have just come out and said, without asking us, never a single poll or survey, really asking us fans if this is what you want. You've said you're just going to straight up and convert what always has been our games into this new shitfest of multiplayer online crapware, basically. I actually started this article and this video thinking I wasn't going to be negative, like, because there's definitely pros and cons. So before I get all riled up, because I definitely am, because I definitely think with Final Fantasy you cannot sit there and turn what has always been a single player experience and sit there and tell the fans that it's going to be multiplayer going forward, that you're going to be converting it, and the reason why you're doing it is so that you can generate more revenue. I mean, that's disgraceful. But before I get into that, so games as a service model, the pros and cons, what do I think? So games as a service model, for anyone who's wondering, what does that even really mean? That definitely implies more than just a single game. It even implies more than just a single game with 1 or 2 DLCs on the back. This is something that's going to be continuous, something with multiple improvements, multiple DLCs, a full structure, kind of what we've seen with 15 that drags over like a year-long period. And I definitely think that can work if the original game is good, as long as nothing is taken out of the base game. And there's definitely a way that games as a service model can be a good thing. I mean, games as a service model could be a utopia. Think about it. Anything we didn't like in the original game, we can then give our feedback and they can improve, and we can have the games explored and expanded in ways that it previously wouldn't if it was only contained to that single release. We can get content all year round, it can open the game up to other people, again like the port, and it can really improve the experience. And no, that's kind of my position, as long as the original game has nothing taken away from it, and that is a full experience. Honestly, I couldn't give a damn what they did for the DLC structure. They could do a whole year's worth of derpy DLC and fun, and if I don't like it, I could just go, yeah, okay, I'm out. I'm not interested in this DLC. I'm not interested in this season pass. I just won't play it. It's not going to take anything from the original game that I felt that was fantastic and I loved it. But that's the issue. Those pros are very pie in the sky. All the while that they think they can just add this 3 months down the line, they can keep working this 6 months down the line. Let's say when they're getting close to their release date and they've not got a bit of content finished, well, do they really have to push back the release date? No, we'll just release it now and then we'll just add it in as part of the service model later. There is almost no way, guaranteed, guaranteed that this will work, and because they are now adopting this, it's pretty much guaranteed we're never going back to the golden era of Final Fantasy, which I know for a fact is what Final Fantasy fans are yearning for. We want to go back to the days of 7, 8, 9, 10, hell even 13, when we had a full story and every character's backstory explored. Everything was fleshed out, nothing was missing. We didn't finish the game with a million damn questions. And I mean, let's just really think about if 7, 8 or 9 had been a service model. Let's say this existed back then. We got to the Golden Saucer, there was all the dead people shot on the floor, and then it kind of just skipped over that part, kind of what they did in 15, like they skipped over huge like time jumps, and then we were just us leaving, and Barrett was like, God,
that was crazy what happened back there, Spike, eh?
And then 6 months later, we get a Barrett and Dean DLC where we play it. There is just no way that if any of those previous Final Fantasy games had done that, had chopped their games up and their characters' backstory, that any of them would have been as impactful and meaningful as what those experiences were. And that's why, as many pros as there are for games as a service model, I just can't get on board with it. I refuse to get on board with it, and I refuse specifically because I know that Square Enix, they cannot handle this the right way, and they are not doing this for the right reasons. They are just doing this because they want to chase the trends. They want to just get as many people and just try to get as many sales as possible. And what I'm even more against is, this is our franchise. You can't just come along and say we're converting it. We're converting it to something that is totally unidentifiable from what made your franchise great up until this point. I mean, yeah, actually they can, and they are, but why didn't you ask us, Square? I mean, it just feels like they don't actually give a shit at all anymore what they think, or what we think, should I say. Because it really would have been hard for you to have done a poll to get a bit of feedback. And if you'd have done that, you would have seen how many people were against this. But I mean, I did it even on my Facebook. So I asked on the Facebook group how many people were in favour of this. 20% said yes, they are, and 80% said no. And if you even go to any of these articles that have been discussing it, you go to the comment section and it is... it's a real doozy down there. People are angry, people live it, and quite rightly so in my opinion. I mean, Matsuda, he straight up come and said, you do not actually need to play a game for yourself to enjoy it anymore. What? I mean, I'm a YouTuber. I do live streaming. I should be happy about this. You know, they're now molding Final Fantasies to something that would really suit my business, really suit me as a YouTuber. With this kind of structure, guys, believe me, I have all the motivation in the world to get behind this. I can be streaming all of this DLC constantly, and constantly getting tips and ad revenue with stuff that I can constantly be streaming and getting views. This is going to be a real boon for the channel, but I don't want it. Frankly, and I'm being dead seriously, if I could delete my fucking channel to stop Square Enix going in this direction, I would. Now, before I round this great big rant video out, I'm going to say I get it again. No, because I want to seem objective. I get that service model can really work, especially with how games are now today. Games are extremely expensive, difficult to make, and it's really hard to be competitive in such a competitive market. But no, the core values of Final Fantasy, they have to mean something. You have to uphold them. And I did a video the other day, I deleted it because I didn't like it, where I spoke about how Square Enix, they have totally lost what the core values of Final Fantasy are. I know some people are going to say, what core values, Final Fantasy has always changed. It's been one of the most changing franchises out there. Every single story is different, everything plays different. But there has to be something core. If anyone says there's nothing core to a Final Fantasy, well then Final Fantasy stands for nothing. There has to be something that is core to a Final Fantasy, or what makes it distinct? What makes a Final Fantasy distinctly unique? And I've watered it down to two things. It's where everything is fleshed out, the stories are fleshed, the story is fleshed out, the characters are fleshed out, the villains are fleshed out, and there's no huge gaps or mystery in the story. Like, coming away from 7, like, when I thought in my head, what would I've done if I had to have done a DLC? There was nothing that jumped out to me, and that's the point. There was nothing that, that part of the story needed exploring. Nothing that just jumped at me in waves. Then I thought about 15, and oh boy, it's a different story. There's tons of stuff jump out my head that needs to be done as a DLC. And that's an issue, when there are obviously so many plot holes that jump out. So that's the first part. The other part that I've genuinely begin to believe is a core and the essence of Final Fantasy is a linear driven story experience, and that was the other thing that really detracted from 15. And this multiplayer concept, which Final Fantasy is a multiplayer game, it's just a stupid idea. That is what is also detracting, because every Final Fantasy, and I'm going to say not linear as in linear corridors, I'm not talking about Final Fantasy 13 hallway simulator, I'm talking about a plot structure, a method of storytelling that every single Final Fantasy since its inception has had. Now, a lot of people are a bit confused and think that 7, 8, and 9 and whatnot, they were open world and they weren't linear. No, they were linear. The terrain closed off and controlled where the player was driven down a very specific path, and the story constantly unraveled. And 15 was the first game that did away with that. It just dropped you in an open world and went, there you go, fuck it. Have a blast with it. Go off, explore for 10, 15, 20, 100 hours, have a shitload of fetch quests, and there was no structure to it. That's why I was saying my favourite part of 15, it was when we got into the linear stuff at the end. Now, even that wasn't great because it was only a very small amount of linear, and it was in such a bland, repetitive environment, those repetitive corridors. So what they did do in 15 that was linear was a terrible example of linearity. But now that you're doing away with that, and the fact that, you talk about your next project, are you going to do more open world, and Tabata's is leaning towards, yes, we're just going to have these really wide open areas where you can just roam for hundreds of hours. And that's an issue because that's when Final Fantasy stopped being that really immersive experience and they start being this jump on, jump off, where the focus isn't the story anymore and it's the gameplay experience. That's the flip right there. Gameplay and kind of going off and doing mini games and whatnot in past Final Fantasies, that was just a respite, and you would jump off at very specific moments after having a huge chunk of story. They let you have a break and have a bit of fun, and then you jump straight back on the story and boom, straight back into the tunnel. So it was more like a respite, a brief breather from the storyline, whereas it's totally flipped now. What they're saying here about it more being gameplay, and what Tabata has been saying about gameplay being the real focus, I mean, that's when it's no longer immersive, and I think that was 15's biggest issue. It was that story immersion, because it was designed to be jump on and jump off, and you could really feel it. You're never going to be immersed in a story all the while. You can do an hour or two of the story and then jump off and just get lost for 15, 20 hours and a load of side bullshit and then jump back on. But there it is, guys. I'm done. I'm out. That's my very opinionated thoughts. For all those people who are happy about this, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone else's opinion. This is just mine. It's just, this is a really sad time for me because 15, it felt like a Final Fantasy, and I've definitely enjoyed its DLC structure, though I think it has been way too dragged out, and there's definitely been some derpy additions, and they've made some missteps. But 15 to me, although it felt like a Final Fantasy, it felt like a Final Fantasy barely. It was the one by far that detracted from the rest of the franchise, detracted from what a Final Fantasy is, detracted from the core essence and heart of a Final Fantasy, and all those things that did detach 15 from being like the others, the essences that really moved away from the core values of Final Fantasy. All I've seen is the news articles that Square Enix are taking those elements and they're taking them even further. Not just taking them further, but they now want to make those things the new core essence of Final Fantasy, and in my mind, this could spell the death of my franchise as I know it. And I know there's going to be some people in the comment section mocking, oh, what a fanboy, get over it. So melodramatic, it's just a game, don't be so serious. I know there's going to be some people taking the piss and think this is an over-exaggeration. But honestly, I would happily put some money down that anyone who is taking the piss, anyone who can't relate or understand in any way what I'm saying, I can almost guarantee that 15 is your only Final Fantasy, because I can't see how anyone who has been around this franchise long enough doesn't understand what I'm saying. That's the thing, there are so many new people to the franchise, and I said this in a video a couple of days back. I mean, I know this might sound rude, but honestly, what have people who've only played 15 and that's the only Final Fantasy, what have they got to offer in terms of feedback? And that's the thing, I genuinely think there's a majority. I think we'll be shocked at how many people. I did a poll on it, so many people's first Final Fantasy. Well, even when I asked my stream, who's first Final Fantasy 15? It was me. And I'm glad we've got so many newcomers to the franchise, but honestly, I think a lot of these newcomers were brought to Final Fantasy for all the wrong reasons. For all the gimmick reasons that Final Fantasy implemented into the game to try to appeal to Western gamers, and all of those detracted from the heart of Final Fantasy. And unfortunately, that's what even when Tabata said that the future of Final Fantasy, and Matsuda said the same thing, it's all going to be based on player feedback. Well, unfortunately, player feedback with 15 is going to be a bunch of people who have never played Final Fantasy. The majority, I bet it is nearly close to a majority at this point. You're going to be taking feedback from people who have never played a Final Fantasy and have no clue about the franchise or what the players who've been with it really hold dear. And since when should feedback be based on the voices that are the loudest and biggest? When were those the voices that we should be listening to and always necessarily right? So unfortunately, guys, there it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. How do you feel about games as a service model? And is there something I'm missing? Because honestly, from where I'm sitting right now, this spells destruction for like I said, all the core values that I knew. And I think that Square Enix are just following all the wrong trends. This sounds like the kind of shit that you'd hear EA going on about. And it's just the opposite of what I play Square Enix games for. But there it is, guys. Until the next video. God! A way to generate constant revenue streams. Really, Matsuda? Really? Yeah. Jackie.